We have Julie Blackwood, we've got several justices of the peace that are here today. Julie Blackwood, Rebecca Davis, Donna Massey, Patricia Young Baker, and Kathy Lewison, who is here for as long as she's able to. And with that, I want to let y'all know. Oh, thank you. And yes.
Let everybody introduce themselves.
Justice Ward and Justice Person.
Thank you, Katie. As well as Justice Ward and Justice Person. And with that, we had a ton of people who wanted to be here today who just weren't able to because it didn't fit their schedules, largely because things are moving so quickly with this issue that we have been working really hard to get this event together in a very short amount of time, and unfortunately a lot of really deeply concerned folks wanted to be here to participate and weren't able to. In addition to our elected officials, we also have several subject matter experts and coalition leaders: Wendell Griffin, Dr. Brooke Butler, Richard Mays, and George Wise, as well as, I believe, Kathy Webb. Awesome. Is also here. Our subject matter experts and our coalition leaders will be the folks answering most of the questions. Our justices of the peace are here because they also want to ask some questions and get some answers. All right, and one last thing before we get started, I want to establish some ground rules for us. We want today to be a productive conversation. We also want to get through everything we need to get through. So, first ground rule, this is for everybody here today, our subject matter experts, our justices of the peace, and every one of us who is here as a guest. Please make sure, if you can, that your comments are additive rather than repetitive. We want to make sure that we aren't repeating ourselves because we've only got a few hours. Two, we want to encourage folks to embrace constructive debate. Disagreements are a part of talking about things that we're all passionate about, especially when those things are controversial. Disagreement is great, that's how we move forward, but we do want to keep our conversation respectful. We want to encourage folks to share the air, so be mindful of the amount of time that we take up. And for our subject matter experts, I do want to let you know that I will be timing you, and in the event that we run more than a few minutes, I will go ahead and ask people to close up their statements so that we can move on and make sure that everyone gets a chance to speak. And last but not least, we are going to be utilizing a parking lot. If you have questions, comments, concerns that are either off topic, that are too big for us to cover today, or that can be addressed better in another format, we are going to hold on to those, and we will be readdressing those at future events. All right, and with that, I'm going to open up for our first question. I want to ask our roundtable participants, why is this conversation important, and what motivated you to be here today?
Who has the mic?
Oh, good place to start. Both of the data centers are in my district. This is very important because this is our livelihood. Data centers, I'm not saying they're bad because we need them, but how they're regulated is very important. And currently, there's no transparency. I'm here because some of you are my constituents, and this affects us all.
Just piggybacking off of what Donna says, I think it's important that we have productive conversations about issues that affect all of us. And getting good information out there so that we all can make informed decisions about how these projects affect us is really important. So that is one of the main reasons why I'm here, just so that we make sure that we are giving out good information so that we all make good informed decisions about what's happening.
I'm George Wise with the Sierra Club. This planet's hot and getting hotter. And Sierra Club has concerns about how data centers are to be powered and how they are to be cooled, and I want to talk about that later.
I'm Julie Blackwood, and I'm the JP in the 4th District, and I think it's important that we have a productive conversation about this, because this is one of the most important things that's going to impact our society going forward. And there are so many of them right now, and it is the wild, wild west out there. They have no type of regulation, and we must, if they're going to be good citizens of our society, we must put down some kind of regulation. And we must have an open discussion, and they must come to the table with us.
My name is Wendell Griffin, and I'm here because I want to be the next county judge in Pulaski County. The current county judge knew about this at least 2 years ago and didn't tell most of the folks, if not all the people in this room. And we haven't had this kind of transparency. So I'm thankful for this transparency. I'm glad to be here with animal people to include these JPs who need to be, we all need to be involved in the rule making, the policy making. So I'm glad we're all here. Thank you for putting this on this. I'm less than 5 minutes. He told me he was going to hunch me if I was 5 minutes. So if I hunch him, that's me. He's bigger than I am, so I'm not hunching home.
We all know Justice Griffin can be quite loquacious, so we're going to make sure we keep him on time, right? Yeah, my timekeeper's down there. My name is Stephen Person. I am the JP for District 5. I'm here because I was talking to my good friend Katie Rose, and we both agree that this is what democracy looks like. It is imperative and important that we have the citizens have an input. It is imperative and important that we have the elected officials listening to the people, because at the end of the day, the people are the boss. They put us up here, and it is our duty, it is our responsibility to listen. That's why I'm here, and I'm looking forward to constructive conversations. I understand that when you deal with humans, you deal with human emotions, but I'm hoping we can keep it to a constructive level, fact-based, and maybe, hopefully, emotions will be subsided while we have a very productive conversation.
My name is Rebecca Davis, and I'm JP for District 5, so I cover Ferndale, Nolan, and Chenal. This is very special to my part because I don't know if you guys are familiar with the billboards off Canis that when the ETJ was looked at. I think we had 12 billboards in the span of 2 miles. Well, that's what happens when we don't have regulation. I do not like a lot of regulation, but we need some, otherwise we will have who knows how many. So that's why I'm here today.
Hi everyone, I'm Blake Tierney. My perspective is as a nonprofit leader and somebody who has worked a lot in community engagement and public engagement. And so from my perspective, this is really important because the people of Little Rock and Pulaski County have felt left out of decision making, not only in these decisions about data centers, but beyond that. And public trust in government institutions is at an all-time low across the board and continuing to plummet if decisions like this continue to happen in the way that they have been. There are ways that we can have more meaningful, substantive public input and public conversations where public power, the people who are going to be affected by this, are not just at the table, but are helping make decisions, negotiate benefits, and things like that. So that's where I sit on this, is public participation is crucial in this, and it hasn't been at the forefront.
I'm Richard Mays, Richard H. Mays. There's 2 of us in town. I'm the H. I'm here as a private, one of those damn attorneys that sticks their nose in everything. Fortunately, I'm one that is generally on the side of the public, the grassroots organizations and so forth. I think this is important because, in my opinion, the development of data centers is one of the most significant developments that has occurred since the beginning of the introduction of computers, generally. I can remember when we didn't have computers, and we had typewriters, and then we got smarter typewriters, and then they developed apples and other things that we could all afford to buy, and we all got, and now they're all over the place. And we're getting now a development data centers that gets thousands of computers in one place to do particular types of things. It has the potential for being very beneficial to humankind. It also has the potential for being very dangerous and disastrous for humankind. I don't think that, we're dealing with problems here that have to do with noise and use of electricity and resources, water and so forth, which are all very important, all things that we all need. I think we also need to look at how these processing units are being used and what they're putting out and what they have the potential to do that we may not want to have done. So that's the reason I'm here, and I see a lot of people nodding their heads, and I hope you agree. And I want to express my appreciation to the organization Individual for sponsoring this. It's hard to get people out on the weekend. I want to say that I admire you for coming out, spending your personal time to attend this. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Brooke Butler, and the importance of this and my reason for being here are basically the same. I'm research and policy manager with Anthropocene Alliance, which is a national coalition of more than 450 community-based organizations fighting for environmental justice issues. And this has become one of the biggest issues in environmental justice that there is. I have been part of conversations about data centers and the resistance and the regulation for over a year now. And in all of these calls, I've never seen a single person from Arkansas in any of these. And so I'm very happy that people are now understanding that these data centers aren't necessarily all that they've been promised to be, and that there will be some more community understanding and hopefully some more community input with the data centers that are coming in and will be inevitably proposed in the future.
Wow.
Thank you all.
You may run it down? I'll run it down.
Thank you all for your responses. I want to begin by asking some of the questions that were submitted beforehand through our registration link. So the first one is, our water, air, and noise level depends on our decisions. Why have these data centers been pushed on people who clearly do not want them? Why did we not get a vote?
Well, the state of Arkansas did get a vote. They voted in the current legislators, right? Last time I checked, no one sent them up there without an election. Unless I was asleep for like the past 3 or 4 years. So we voted for this. If you're looking for somebody to blame, when you go home, go to your bathroom, turn the light on, and look in the mirror. And I do the same thing. I will not ask you to do something that I do not do. The state of Arkansas, the people of Arkansas voted in these legislators who made the decision to pass an act to create a law that says municipalities cannot force data centers not to come in. I wish that wasn't the case. I'll tell you one thing, that's going to be one of the bills I plan to run, is to make an amendment to that, to allow for local municipalities to be able to create their laws and to have the freedom to decide what goes in their local areas and their local neighborhoods. The second part of that question was, what was the first part? I'm sorry.
Why are they being pushed on people who
Pushed
don't
on
want them?
people. Okay, so I am also on the Little Rock Planning Commission, and a bio came before the Little Rock Planning Commission. I voted no. I'm on record voting no, and I'm on record why I did vote no. And when I saw that was happening, I informed everybody in my neighborhood association about what was going on. Guess how many people was in the planning commission meeting that day? About 7. There's a lack of involvement by the public. So when you say they're being pushed on you, they're doing it in broad daylight. They're making decisions in broad daylight. I voted no because I felt like it was too close to the people of Sweet Home. And therefore, I was against it full stop. Having said that, it is also incumbent on elected officials to continue to inform the public as well. Because you have jobs to go to, you have families to take care of. That's why it's our responsibility to make sure we're putting forth information, letting you know what's going on. So again, if that's not happening, use the power that you have and hold your elected officials responsible. If I'm letting my people know and no one else is, not saying I'm talking about the corporate sake, but like even on the planning commission, if no one else is, then you need to pay. Listen, you're not doing your job the way you need to do, the way you need to perform it. Everyone has a responsibility in this. The elected officials have responsibility, but even more so the public has responsibility. Yes, I got you, Doc.
I agree that we live in a democracy, but we also live in a democracy where everybody doesn't get the information that we need in the fashion and time that we need it to be active. We were both soldiers and military intelligence. There is the notion of having intel and then having actionable intel. All intel is not actionable. Everything you know isn't something you can act on. And as Brother Person said, people have jobs, people have activities. The truth of the matter is that Google and Avaya, Google is one of the 5 biggest tech companies in the world. Avaya started less than a decade ago, and it's a $750 million, $750 million equity company. The truth of the matter is, they didn't want us to know. And they acted as they have always done. Non-disclosure agreements with economic development people. Economic development agreements, signed non-disclosure agreements, and then elected officials did the okey-doke. Said, okay, we'll sign. In April of 2024, they were started. In April 2025, Mayor Scott signed an MOU with Willow Bend Capital, which is a subsidiary of Google. That MOU was approved by the city directors of Little Rock in a meeting that was called in the same day. The meeting lasted less than 3 hours. The meeting happened, and most of us don't get a chance to act on stuff with less than 24 hours notice. Okay? You can't get a temporary restraining order that fast. And so we really didn't get the information. The fact of the matter is, though, now we know. And the issue isn't like we know before. The issue is, what will we do? What will we act on now that we know?
I just want to make a point of correction. Google came before the planning commission, not Avaya. It was Google that came before the planning commission that I voted against. Sorry.
To echo what Judge Griffin said, the corn court was completely kept in the dark. We did not know about, and I do think that was an active decision. The planning board does meet, it was, in 2 years, that we had no idea. And then the planning board meets, the county planning board meets at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday. That is ridiculous. I can't get there at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday, and my constituents can't get there. So I actively tried to move the time to be at 5:30, so we who have jobs can get there. I had some support on the corn court, not all. I'm hopeful that Judge Griffin will be able to help us out there when he takes office in January.
Y'all will vote for me. 17th.
I just want to build on some of the comments that were just made, and twofold. So I will push back a little bit on what you're saying, JP Persons. Yes, I think that the public does need to have responsibility for making their voices known and doing things. However, as is mentioned, when a process is obtuse and intentionally kept from the public, it is very difficult for the public to participate. And so, and yes, there have been news articles, there have been everything, and blah 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 blah. And Judge Griffin has said what he said about information. What information can we actually use to make decisions and take action? And furthermore, I think you were referencing this some in terms of times of meetings. When we think about the process of how meetings occur, we have to think about accessibility for the public. And a lot of folks that could be there on Tuesday at the city board meeting or at a quorum court meeting have privilege to do that. We have to think about all the things of accessibility that go into somebody being able to share their comments and their input. That is transportation, that's jobs, what jobs and how many jobs you have. Do I have the bandwidth of energy to be able to go to it because I'm tired from jobs and kids and you name it, you go down the list. Health access, where is in the community, the location, childcare. We could go on and on. Language accessibility. Who actually gets to have a voice in those meetings and saying that yes, we're going to have that's the public hearing. That is unacceptable as an answer when the public is asking for participation in this, and leaning on the minimum that you could do is not actually responding to the people. So that's one thing that I'll say is process is very much part of this. We can also go further into how much of the process for the legislators, that the 2023 Act was introduced at the very end of the session, learning a little bit about this, and so it was at the tail end of decision making and it was pushed through. And so how much did even the legislators actually look into it? I'm sure that for the city directors, having it thrust on them was also a last minute, what do we do with this? But that doesn't mean that a decision should still be made on that. We want our leaders to be able to say, hold up, wait a minute. Do the public actually have something to say about this? So that we actually have time? Just one other piece on the process, and then I want to move to philosophy, is in our city board meetings, and this might be the same for quorum court, for ordinances, you have to read it 3 times and before something is passed. Typically, those are done in 3 separate meetings. What has become standard practice in our city board meetings is to suspend the rules and read all 3 times in the same meeting. And so it cuts the process time really quickly. Now, there is something to be said about efficiency, great. But I think we have to really pay attention to, again, I'm going to go back to this, are we meaningfully, substantively giving ways for the public to participate with all the information that they need to make a decision and talk to one another? Do people have access to the information? So that's one thing. The second thing, when it comes to how has this been forced on us, is a bit of philosophy in terms of governance. And so we've seen, in some ways, I'm taking the city because that's what I focus on the most.
Can we go ahead and thank you for your remarks? Let's put a pin in that just for a second and come back. I'm sure it will come back around, but for the sake of brevity, let's move on.
Okay, I would also like to say, when we approached the quorum court meeting and the way they handled it in the quorum court meeting was, we were totally blindsided. It was not on our agenda. We usually follow an agenda. Nothing was on our agenda. They brought in ABO, they brought in Energy, they brought in CAW, and they brought in the chamber. They gave a 2.5-hour meeting and presentation. When I asked if anybody could speak, could the public speak, I was told absolutely not. And so that is not what I would call letting the people have a voice, or letting the people, come up and say, this is how I'm feeling. And so that was something that I was completely blindsided by and upset by, because the people did not get to speak until after the gavel was down, after the vote was in, and then they let the people that had dissent come and speak. And that is not what I call true representation.
I'd like to address the original question, why are we here in this situation? Sierra Club had a representative out at the legislature when the bill passed that prohibited cities and counties from banning data centers. We had someone there. The problem is the Republicans control the legislature and they are willfully ignorant of issues relating to the environment. We have to change the legislature.
So I just wanted to address the part of the question where it feels like it's being pushed upon us. We have to go back to the very beginning. So when Abiyo, I can't speak for Little Rock, but I can speak for the county portion. I do feel like there needs to be some regulation changes in how the community is informed. So when Abiyo applied for its site plan and approvals, the various required documentations, there is nothing in the regulation that says they have to inform the public. There's nothing in the regulation that says they have to inform the members of the quorum court. So if they don't have to inform you, they're not going to necessarily just be willing to inform us until it becomes an issue. And when it became an issue, that's when we were informed. So we have to go back to the very beginning and change the process, because there's not, you know, when I've looked at how things have evolved, my question has been this. There have been very important stakeholders involved in this process, but the most important stakeholder was not. And that was the people. The people specifically that were directly will be impacted. Tina's district has not been consulted with, and that is a problem. So we need to go back to changing regulations on how the community is informed. Not when you request a variance, because that is when the community has to be informed. But by that time, that process is too late. So we go back to the very beginning. So if we don't want things done like we're being put, that are pushed upon us, we go back and make changes to make sure that we get informed. And then we add to. So if you have to inform your community, you have to inform your justices. That's how we know, and that's how the conversation gets started. Not after, but before.
Hello once again, I'm Donna Massey. I didn't introduce myself the first time, representing District 6. The quorum court was, totally blindsided by this. I've heard of data centers and definitely was involved in meetings, to fight against data centers. All the time, not knowing that Pulaski County had one that we were going to have to deal with. This came before our planning department. I do have a question. Did it actually come before our planning board? Does any, so did they even know what they were approving? I guess is what I'm wondering. But anyway, this is something that typically does not come before us. I think going forward or in the months to come, that will change. So we knew nothing about this development. And when it did hit us, we were, like, okay, what do we do? Or we knew what we needed to do, but some did not agree on the process. I feel that we need to go back to the beginning. We need to pause, not ban, but we need to pause what's happening to allow the public to learn more, as well as for the JPs to get a better understanding of what's trying to take place. And at the same time, regulate to make sure that we are protected as constituents, as ratepayers.
Context is everything. April 2023, the Arkansas Data Centers Act passed the legislature, as Representative Persons mentioned. Fast forward to April 2020, to March 2025. No, February 2025. In the Arkansas legislature, a bill was introduced to repeal extraterritorial jurisdiction. It failed. It was introduced by Representative Justin Gonzalez of Oklahoma. Oklahoma is in Clark County. I grew up next to Oklahoma. It failed on the first pass, then it was brought back in, and it passed the second time. They didn't have an emergency clause to it, so it didn't go into effect immediately. Went into effect in August. But it repealed extraterritorial jurisdiction, ETJ. ETJ simply says that in the area outside of municipality, there is a discrete space, depending on the size of the municipality, that the municipality can exercise land use control. It can regulate. That law, that state law was repealed. I pause for effect. Pulaski County did nothing. The judge did nothing. The planning department did nothing to alert the planning, the court, anybody else, that we need to have some protection for the people in the ETJ for this law. November 2025, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, the quorum court had a scheduled planning meeting, a scheduled business meeting. There was on the agenda an ordinance to amend the land use plan that the county paid $500,000 for. That had 2 years worth of input. That morning, that agenda item was taken off the agenda by order of the county judge. None of the people on this panel knew anything about it. None of JPs knew about it. Instead, after Thanksgiving, the weekend of Thanksgiving, a special meeting of the planning board was announced for December 2. That's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving holiday. For the county to consider a county-wide zoning ordinance. Pulaski County doesn't have zoning. That zoning ordinance had a provision in it. I read. Page 14, bottom of the page. For the first time in the history of Pulaski County law, the words data centers is found. None of the people on this panel knew it. I'm wrapping up. When people sneak up on you, they don't usually blow a horn. And people who sneak up on you do not sneak up on you to call themselves your neighbors. They sneak up on you to capture you. That's called predators.
Question. We've got lots of great ones, and this one is specifically for our subject matter experts. So this is from a concerned constituent, and they say the Sweet Home Higgins Red Oak sewage system pumps into the Wrightsville prison pump station. The system is grossly inefficient. The manholes currently overflow with solid sewage. The smell, the environmental damage is horrendous. I was building my current home when this system was installed. We had no choice but connect to this overworked and underpaid system. I spoke with the contractors, and the owner personally told me that the system they contracted, and it is not installed to handle any large wastewater, as they were not contracted to install only the present homes and only allow for a few new homes. The system will not handle the size of the data center. It is wholly unrequited. With the usage of the 400 million gallons of water in the PFAs, where exactly is the wastewater going? How is it going to be treated, and can it be ensured that there are zero effects to the well water and the Fish Creek, which runs into the Fouch Creek and the Arkansas River? And there's a note here also saying that closed loops do not work nationwide, and asking what makes the operation in Arkansas so different. This one is specifically to the subject matter. Here it's our
I'm sorry, Sierra Club has a simple solution to the question of using our good, clear, sweet drinking water to cool data centers. Put in a regulation that requires any data center to use a closed loop system and cool the data center with refrigerants. No water is used.
No, they want the experts.
Okay. Richard, your subject matter expert, you want to talk to this?
Yeah, sure. I'll start out answering your question by saying I didn't really understand it. I have, men of my age sometimes have a problem hearing, and I think some of you here are probably old enough to appreciate that. My mother lived to be 93, and I thought she was suffering from dementia in the last few years, and I decided that since I've reached close to that age, that it's probably she couldn't hear me. We had a discussion that started out one way and it ended up totally unrelated. But anyway, as I understand the question is basically what is the effect of these data centers on our resources such as water, electricity, and that sort of thing. Is that generally right? Okay. These data centers take a huge amount of water because they use the water directly to cool, in many instances, not always, but frequently to cool their chips that get really hot when they're running these computers at high speed and constantly 24 hours a day, which they do 24 hours a day. The water either has to be recycled or it has to be discharged. If it's discharged, it has usually picked up some contaminants from the chips, chemicals in other words, that could be discharged into the rivers, streams of the state, lakes, or if it's recycled, eventually they gotta discharge the water because they can't constantly recycle the same water all in perpetuity. This is a huge problem. There are 6,000 data centers in North Virginia. That's hard to believe, but that's what the facts that I've seen based upon my research. They use tremendous gallons, trillions of gallons of water in that area, and it's had a big effect there on the availability of water. It's had a big effect on water rates. And I don't think that we're going to, I hope we don't ever achieve, if you want to call it that, the number of 6,000 data centers in this area, but you never know. But if one data center, such as the one at the Port of Little Rock, and the one that they're talking about further south in Pulaski County, near Riceville, are going to use a tremendous amount of water to cool their facilities and to cool their computers. And the question is that I still don't have a satisfactory answer from the authorities for is, what are they going to do with that? How are they going to replace it? I went to a meeting the other day. I mean, the people of Pulaski County use a lot of water themselves. Millions of gallons of water a day. The people from the water authority, Central Arkansas Water, said, well, we've got plenty of water, and if you draw down 1 million gallons a day for a data center, it's still not going to have an impact on the drinking water supply of the people in Little Rock, Pulaski County. I don't think that's necessarily true, and I always take the authorities, what they say, with a grain of salt. There was a headline, actually, there's a data center they're proposing to put in Conway, and I noticed that the city of Conway has put a restriction on water usage in the city to the people. The people of Conway have to ration their use of water because they don't have an adequate supply to be able to allow the citizens of Conway to use all the water they want for whatever they want to use it for. The question naturally arises is, what's going to happen when we put a data center in and it's using millions of gallons of water a day and we have a drought? We depend on surface waters here in Pulaski County. Lake Maumelle, another lake or two. They're talking about working out an arrangement with the Corps of Engineers to get water from Bruce Ferry Lake and to get it from Lake DeGray. But there's an awful lot of infrastructure that has to be built to get water from those sources. And the Corps of Engineers may not want to give that water up. So it's a serious question. There's no really good answer for it yet. And that's why we're here, and that's why we ought to be asking these questions. The same could be said of electricity as well.
I just want to add to that, in addition to any things that are going to be picked up from chips with the water going through, they're also going to be pumping it full of descaler and lubricant as well as biocides to make sure that things don't grow in that water and that things don't build up in that water because it may be going near their machinery that costs so much money that they're not as concerned about what goes in the water and comes out. And I would like to see a formal disclosure of these chemicals that are going to be in there so that we can understand if the wastewater treatment is suitable for whatever they're putting in this water and coming out. And I know that a lot of people are going down there, but yeah, I just wanted to add that. And also that talking about the electricity, there was a new report that came out on Wednesday from the UN University, and by 2030, data centers are projected to use 3% of world electricity.
I just wanted to add, I think they did say, or say they, the CAW, when they spoke with us at a meeting that they were going, CAW does have a waste treatment, that's their plan. 'Cause that was what we asked, was what is their current plan to do the discharge? And they said they have their own treatment plan. And then when we asked more questions, they kind of didn't have any answers.
It needs to be in writing how they're going to treat the water. We do not need water that's going to be too sanitized for the environment. It needs to be in writing that our electric bills are not going to increase because of these data centers. Everything needs to be transparent on the environmental issues as well as the quality of life for citizens as well as our electric bills. George?
Yeah, sometimes lawyers who want to keep their jobs are risk averse. And the county attorney needs to be pushed a little bit harder on whether regulations could be put in place now on the Abigail data center. I'm going to repeat it again. We don't have to use our drinking water to cool a data center. Put in a regulation that says we want a closed loop system that uses refrigerants. Some people disagree with that maybe, but it can work. And nothing's recycled. It's like an air conditioner and the heat goes to the outside.
Okay, I think the question really relates to
our Sweet Home Higgins Red Oak water system. And, well, we'll find out who that person is and that wants to know about that. But Central Arkansas Water, I did ask Tad Bohannon about that, and he's gonna come and address that personally because we have a whole nother problem. But let me just say this real quick. In an area that we can't get a Walmart, we can't get a Kroger's. Right. All down Highway 365, we can't get any of those things. We have a prison, we have all these negative things, and now you want to bring a data center. So it's mind-boggling that you can bring, you're not looking at what we need, you're giving us what you want us to have.
Next question.
Justices Ward, Justice Blackwood, Justice Davis have proposed a ordinance that is going to be going before the court. It's going to be Tuesday night, calling for a 12-month moratorium on approving and permitting data centers. You need to be there. 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock. 201 Broadway. Secondly, Justice Blackwood proposed, and it is currently before the planning department, an ordinance for what's called a notice of industrial impact and intent. That ordinance is before the planning board. There'll be a public meeting on that ordinance and an ordinance for a conditional use permitting process on the 11th, Thursday the 11th. June 25th. June 25th. June the 11th. June the 11th, not June 25th.
We'll make sure we get those dates to you before it goes. We'll
Now, the reason I mentioned the NOII, this is what's required. Within at least 90 days after a person applies for a permit, utility connection, or land disturbance, the applicant must notify all landowners and the county within a mile of this application, ownership and control structure, site location and details, electrical demand and phasing, utility infrastructure requirements, water and wastewater demand, traffic, noise and environmental impacts, fire suppression and response impacts, emergency medical response impacts, and there must be an infrastructure impact review that deals with county-done review of electric grid capacity and reliability, the water and wastewater system impacts, transportation and road impacts, and emergency services. Justice Blackwood already has this ordinance drawn up. It is already for the planning department. What do I know? I wrote it.
Thank you very much. It's a very good ordinance. I would say that. It's very, very detailed. And it does address all of these issues, you know, because these are the issues we need to address right now before anything is done within these days.
All right, for the sake of time, we're gonna
And location, please.
what's the time and location for the meeting on the 11th?
The 201 Broadway.
Is that the commission?
Six.
Court Court meets at 201 Broadway
6 p.m.
in downtown Little Rock. Now, the 9th, the 11th is the planning department to schedule a public hearing on the notice of industrial impact, and they moved it to the 25th? Well, okay, they didn't tell me.
How about this? We have a QR code that folks can scan. Can we, indivisible folks, can we commit to making sure that accurate information about all these upcoming meetings is available?
Yeah.
Cool. So anyone who wants to stay up to date on when these meetings are taking place, scan our QR code and we can get you on the list so that you have that information coming to your inbox.
If you could just repeat the
201 Broadway, 6 p.m.
And the June 25th location.
201 Broadway, 6 p.m.
Same location.
Oh, hey folks, remember that's going to be available on the information. Make sure that you scan your QR code or get us your email address on your way out, and you'll be able to get that information there. But for the sake of time, let's go ahead and move on along. All right, so moving on along. This question comes from an online submission and also from our Indivisible folks. We are curious for our subject matter experts. What are the most important things you know that you believe our elected officials who are advocating for our communities need to know as they're making these decisions?
Well, Sierra Club has put out a white paper on Madison. Go to sierraclub.org and find that it's available to the public. And there are 5 things that we'd like to see if we have to have data centers. We don't think we need data centers, any more data centers, but if we're going to have them, here are 5 things we'd like to see in the regulations that can be passed. Any data center should pay for its own power plant, and that power plant should be renewable energy and preferably on site. Any data center should be cooled by a true closed loop system that I just mentioned. As an alternative, if that can't be done, how about using recycled wastewater instead of water? We have the best drinking water in the country. Why use that? Any data center should pay its own way and not be given tax incentives. Any data center should not have backup power from dirty diesel generators. Energy in the city meeting indicated, well, if they don't have the capacity, if we don't have the capacity to run the Google data center, they can use their backup power. Well, that backup power is always dirty diesel generators. And here's something that I don't think that cities and counties realize that they can do. You can pass a regulation that requires the data centers to pay for an environmental assessment of someone of your choice. It doesn't have to be the EPA coming in and doing an environmental assessment or an environmental impact study. You can make them pay for your own environmental impact study. And the last thing, and this is kind of broad, but they should be required to tell you what that data center is going to be used for. We've got concerns that these data centers are going to be used for data collection. All of your information are for surveillance or for what they call national security, whatever that is. So make them tell you what they're going to use the data center for.
Next question.
I should say,
I'm sorry, my bad.
The big issue here, it seems to me, as far as the Little Rock Port Authority facility is concerned, is that we know quite a bit about it because it is required to obtain a federal permit under Section 404 of the Clean Water Act, which is the dredge and field requirements. So they are required to apply for, and they have applied to the Corps of Engineers for a permit. And in order to get that permit, they have to disclose certain basic information, and they have to do an environmental assessment, which they're, as I understand it, they're currently doing. This takes a period of time, and it's a fairly public process, and that's ongoing, and we're keeping an eye on that. The other facility, the Avivo facility, which is the Wrightsville facility, is much larger. The Port Little Rock facility that Google proposes to build is located on about 150 acres of land. And it's only about half or less the size that the Vivo facility is going to be. They are apparently not applying for any federal permits. I don't know whether they're required to or not, because I would think surely there's a navigable water, a stream of some sort that goes through that 80-acre tract that they're putting this facility on. We don't know anything about it. The question is whether we're going to be able to find anything about it. The Freedom of Information Act request that we make to the, well, you gotta, first off, you have to make a Freedom of Information Act request to a public agency or one that gets money from a public agency. I'm not sure that the facility that's building, or the company that's building that Vivo facility or will build it is in that category. Getting information from them is very difficult. So we need to press for information. We need to use the Freedom of Information Act. There are non-disclosure requirements or non-disclosure agreements that the facilities have entered into with Energy and other organizations. If they're not subject to the Freedom of Information Act, then there's a question about whether you can get those agreements at all. And even if they are, they claim they don't have to give them out. My personal view is that the Freedom of Information Act requires that non-disclosure contracts that have non-disclosure provisions in them do have to be disclosed. I don't think you can hide behind the Freedom of Information Act unless there's a specific exemption in the Freedom of Information Act for not disclosing it. And there is none currently except for contracts that contain information that could be considered trade confidential. Some of these non-disclosure agreements may contain that kind of information, but not all of it does. So you should be able to get the agreements that, at least the portions of the agreement that are non-confidential. And the law requires that those portions of the agreement be disclosed. So we have that challenge has not been made. That's a legal challenge that I think should be made to the cities and to the counties when they refuse to disclose information, because I think it should be available under the Freedom of Information Act.
Yep.
I'll be very brief. I just wanted to go back to the question about what we wish that people knew about this. Know that the people who are selling it are greenwashing it, and that they are providing information that is selective and may sound appealing, but may not necessarily be. For example, the bee hives and apiaries that they're wanting to put at the Aveo. Well, that sounds lovely and like they want to promote pollination and pollinators. However, bees navigate and function on electromagnetic fields, and any disruption to those electromagnetic fields will keep them from eating, will keep them from breeding, will keep them from flying, and will keep them from finding their way back home. So doesn't sound as great. But also, you know, as far as these generators, even the Tier 4 generators, which are the best of the generators that are available, do use diesel. And the amount of diesel that they need to keep on hand for 72 hours of emergency services for the Sweet Home property, from what they have disclosed about the megawatt hours that they plan to be using, that alone would require 100,000 gallons of diesel fuel to be on site in tanks holding for that emergency purpose. Sweet Home has a volunteer fire department. I worry that they are not equipped and trained to deal with a fire of that magnitude, and that scares me. I also, you know, generators, they sound pretty innocuous, but the size of these industrial generators that they're using are the size of train cars. These are huge generators and they produce a lot of terrible emissions. For example, in the same UN report I referenced earlier, last year, the CO2 emissions from data centers equaled that of Argentina.
A couple of things that I'll add. One, to your point from the last question, what are the list of materials, substances, chemicals that are being used, and what are the regulations on those that are currently covered? What also has been recently stripped back at the federal and state levels? And what are the city and county going to do to address that? Currently, as an example, we mentioned PFAS, forever chemicals. There's a lot of conversation about this lately. They're in a lot of different materials, consumer goods, industrial goods, but they cause a lot of harm. But there is no regulation on it at the state level. ADEQ, the Arkansas Division of Environmental Quality, does not have any regulations on forever chemicals. And I believe EPA is also scaling those back. Yeah, okay. And so if these centers are going to be leaching these out into the environment, how is that going to affect the community? And so our municipalities, our county needs to address that, needs to understand that. The other question that I think our officials need to wrestle with is that these are long-term concerns that people are having. We're not just talking about, okay, it's going to be built and there's the immediate issues with noise, energy uses, whatever, but it's also what's happening in 20, 30, 50, so on years. What is the lifespan of these data centers? When you consider technological advances, economic turns, whether or not the AI bubble is real, whatever, but there are economic factors that go into whether or not these data centers are going to be successful. And so are we going to be left with a building? Are they going to sell it to another business that may or may not follow certain regulations? So these are questions that need to be addressed on that long-term scale. What is going to happen to the building? What's going to happen at the end of contracts, such as the Entergy contract? The representatives from them said it was a 20-year contract. Okay, what happens after 20 years? So these are definitely some of the things we need to cover.
Thank you. And with that, I want to remind everyone, we have index cards that should be available. If you have a question that you would like to have answered, I want to invite our invisible volunteers to just kind of be checking around. And if you have a question and an index card, you can raise it up in the air. Somebody will come around and collect that for you. And as we're doing that, I want to ask our justices of the peace, our elected officials, what questions do you have for our subject matter experts that will help you as you're working to advocate for our communities?
I guess mine is the pros and cons. I think the student mentioned this when he was speaking at the meeting. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We don't want to be the ones. I think you mentioned all of them.
Oh, yeah.
Angrily waving my fist at television because I'm a fan of radio.
So, do we need these? Do we need minimal? Do we need? I understand we need some, and we want regulations, but do we actually need them? Or what are the pros of these?
The answer is yes, we need regulations, because otherwise the profiteers make the rules. The regulations for the data centers.
Do we need data?
The data center need regulations.
She's asking why do we need data centers, period? And I'm not a subject matter expert, I dabble in tech. So I believe we're live streaming this right now. We have smart watches. That doesn't happen by accident. There's a reason why it's able to happen so fluidly, and there's a reason why when you go to TikTok and you make yourself look like a unicorn flying to Mars, how it looks so nice, there's a reason why that happens. I mean, I think it was several months ago, there was this trend of people making caricatures of themselves with doing various things. Well, that happens because of a data center. And I don't believe we're going to stop using AI and go back to Adobe Photoshop anytime soon. So unfortunately, I don't know that stuff, but unfortunately, that is a particular reason for a data center. Google Drive is a cloud-based platform. Copilot, SharePoint, all this stuff is used because of a data center. But again, where you and I agree is that we need stringent regulations because there are so many things that we do not know, and I'm concerned as technology continues to move forward, and I'll pass this to Julie as I say this, as technology tends to evolve, what happens in 5 years from now when you no longer need physical data centers? They're now called cosmic centers and they're done by satellite up in space. What is the mitigation for the county and for local municipalities when that building is now empty? So we need mitigation as well because physical spaces, we tend to advance and go to something other than that, but that's what things on my mind.
And we did address this in my ordinance and what would happen and what they should do if these places leave, because that is a possibility, and they do move on. And so that was one of the things that we did put in my ordinance to make sure that it was addressed. I also think that, data centers are coming. There's just no way they're not going to be here. And if we're going to work with these data centers, then we have got to be able to minimize, number one, how many there are, because they say one data center is only going to use this much water, or the other data center is going to use this much water. And right now, there's 11 data centers that they're looking at putting in Arkansas. And, that isn't a lot compared to to Texas. Texas is at 500 right now. And so you're looking at high density infrastructures using all kinds of water, electricity, and we have got to be good stewards. We cannot limit the amount maybe of data centers. We don't necessarily need 500 of them popping up in our neighborhood, so I think that's an important thing also.
Julie Blackwood has introduced a conditional use permit ordinance that states no high-intensity digital infrastructure uses shall be constructed or operated without a conditional use permit. Applicants shall provide site and development plans, electrical load and infrastructure analysis, water usage and sourcing plan, noise study, fire protection plan, environmental and waste management plan, and to your point, George Wise, decommissioning plan. That's already before the planning board. That's already before the planning board. And this is something that hasn't been done in Arkansas before, but this is something that's being done in other places. We don't want to be unprotected when we can protect ourselves, and understand this would be part of the required application. And then there will be review processes, and the statute that she's got has a fee structure that will require that the applicant cover the review fees.
Yeah, the Google rep at the city board meeting claimed that they've never decommissioned a data center, so I used Google to look that up, and yes, they do decommission data centers while they're collecting. Go ahead.
I want to ask a question. Since the data center is going to be within 2 miles of Daisy Bates Elementary School, what do you foresee as some of the effects of that?
Well, noise levels can be in effect. Any noise level above 85 decibels is damaging to hearing. Now, they claim that they can build barriers that will reduce the noise level, but do we know that from the planning? Have they disclosed what they're going to do?
I was told that ODO was going to build a sound wall. So, I mean, I asked them.
Well, what kind of sound wall? I mean, have you seen the plan for it? Have they read it?
And this was another unique thing that I found out, that they're not gonna potentially have a data center on 145th Street. They're gonna build a data center apartment building. So other people can put their data centers within their property.
The other thing that's concerning, if these data centers get built, is that they create heat islands. The National Oceanic, Administration did a study where they took 20 years of data on data centers, and they've learned that a hyperscale data center will raise the ambient air temperature for 6 miles around the data center somewhere between 3 and 12 degrees. And that has an impact from CERCLA's perspective on wildlife, birds, insects. Other wildlife are affected by that raised temperature, and then the light pollution from the data center. I don't know if they disclosed if they're going to keep it lit 24 hours a day or not, but there are reports of people living in data centers that just can't sleep because of the lights.
Thank you. With the LIO, as the Justice here just stated, they're planning to be like renters or renting out, or landlords renting out to 15 buildings. So what can we do to ensure that they are regulated? Because Avaya is unregulated. What about their renters?
Hi, this is going back to the what can you expect for impacts to the community and for elementary school that's nearby. I would look at what's happening in Richland Parish, Louisiana, with the Meta data center that they are building there. There was an elementary school that was along the route necessary for all of the big trucks to take in order to get to the proposed site. And the students ended up not being able to have recess anymore because there was so much dust and dirt and road debris stirred up from these heavy trucks constantly going by. Not to mention the noise that comes from these and the danger as well. You can hear some horror stories from there. Their traffic accident incidents right there has increased by 600%, largely due to the influx of these heavy trucks going through areas that were not designed for them. Residents say that they can't go outside their houses because everything's being blown up. They have to put things under their doors because the dust is coming inside their houses even. So, and this is construction. This is before the data center is even built. So, I mean, these are things to even keep in consideration pre-data center and thinking about some of these things that could possibly be addressed as well.
While the microphone's down at this end of the line, I would say on that subject that the environmental laws of the United States require that if federal funds are involved, that the proposer of the project has to analyze not only the direct impacts, but the indirect impacts and the cumulative impacts of the facility. What you just described are indirect impacts, where the schools are affected by the dust that's created by the trucks that go to the construction site. But there's also, in the case of data centers, there are power lines that have to be built from the power source, that is the energy plant, to the facility that's doing the data processing. These are high-powered lines. They require a 60 or 100-foot right-of-way. You can think of all the miles of right-of-way that you have to cut through forest and fields and so forth to put these lines. And then, of course, you've got the problem of what to do with the waste from construction, and then the waste from the operation, and then after the facility's use is over, what do you do with a 1 million square foot or 1.5 million square foot building? There aren't that many uses for them. So it runs the gamut, and the law, any law we have that we adopt in the county or in the city should require environmental impact statements. It puts them to the additional expense of doing that, but we ought to know, the public has a right to know how their lives and their environment are going to be affected by the construction, not only of the plant, but of all the things that have to go into the plant and where they come from and what the sources of energy of those are, and other information.
I have a couple responses to previous questions. I'm going to hold that. I want to give one quick comment on this one, which is just as you've heard when we're talking about impacts, we need to be hearing from the folks who have the answers. The people that have been studying this, the people that are experts when it comes to how noise levels affect our health, the people that have the experience with ambient heat and electricity usage, not just frankly, from the stance of what happened at the quorum court and the city council and the city board, where it's a PR stunt. That's what we're getting. We're only getting one side, and then the public has to respond. And so we need to have more perspectives. I know Justice Blackwood, you asked for that at the quorum court meeting, and I appreciate that you did. And I want to see that happen throughout this process. We can't continue to just hear one side that gets to basically just come up themselves.
Hopefully more fun will allow for more public views and public hearings like we're doing right now. This should be the first of many. That is my hope and desire. So, yes.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question, if we're ready. All right. So Katie is over here diligently sifting through your questions and helping to figure out how we can make sure as many of them are answered as possible. But we noticed that there were several that were talking about a lack of transparency and asking specifically when it comes to the contracts that were signed between our electric companies and the corporations building these data centers. Where are those contracts, and are they available for people to find and look at so that they can trust what they see with their eyes rather than listening and trusting that people are telling the truth, since there has been so much confusion?
So that's one thing that concerns me. After the board meeting, I asked John Buckle, who's the public relations guy for Energy, if I could call him. And we had a 30-minute phone conversation the next day because I had noticed a really big disconnect between their rhetoric and about what they're saying particularly about who's going to pay for the new power plants they have to build, and what we know. And those contracts are not disclosable. They're private contracts. He promised at some point they will be disclosed, but right now we just can't get access to the one with Avio, and I wrote a law.
I wrote a law. Justice Blackwood has sponsored it. It's the Notice of Industrial Impact Law. It requires ratepayer protection and cost allocation information. Reading, applicants shall submit documentation from Energy Arkansas or the applicable provider requires in identifying required infrastructure, estimated costs, allocation between developer and rate base, and any special contracts or incentives. Where final information is unavailable, the applicant shall provide good faith estimates based on available utility correspondence, interconnection studies, or engineering assumptions reasonably sufficient to evaluate infrastructure impacts. And the Notice of Industrial Impact law that I wrote, that Justice Blackwood sponsors, reads, the county may condition approval on developer-funded infrastructure, reimbursement agreements, development agreements allocating infrastructure cost responsibility, and proof that public ratepayers are not subsidizing project-specific facilities. That's how you do it. You write a law.
We have this all detailed out, and it is explicit. I mean, it goes down A, B, and C. It tells everything. It definitely does go through the mandatory and applicable findings. No applicant shall be approved unless the county makes an affirmative written finding supported by the substantial evidence in the record that the proposed project will not result in material subsidization of required electric infrastructure by existing ratepayers. And that was my biggest concern. Failure to make such findings shall require denial. And that was my biggest concern, is that they were going to push back and put all the price back on you. And that was, I think, was one of my biggest concerns about this.
That law says if the required finding cannot be made, the county shall A, deny the application, or B, require mitigation measures including developer funding, reimbursement, or project redesign. This is doable. All we need is 10 votes from the quorum court.
I just want to say for the record, for my constituents, it's not that Julie Blackwood is, I was asked, why aren't you behind all this? Julie Blackwood is Wendell's best friend. I'm with him on this stuff, but she's just a little bit closer, so don't take it personal that I'm not like right there with you, okay? All right.
We good? Are we ready for another question?
Yes, we're.
Let's do it. All right, so, let's see. Y'all, I need a new glasses prescription. I'm going to split into these. The Indian shielded data centers are explicitly targeting Sweet Home and Wrightsville, historically black, and Higgins, historically black communities. Right. This is digital redlining. Yet, we hear some of our black representatives using pro-development language to justify these backroom deals. Why the disconnect? This will affect us all, but it will hurt minorities more.
That is absolutely correct. Anyone with a history book will see how certain neighborhoods will be prone to running an interstate right through. Right. Certain neighborhoods will be prone to high-level industrial developments. In the city, I believe they call it I-3. That's heavy industrial development, where you may put a paper mill. If you go down toward Jefferson County, you have that is as American as apple pie. But it is when you know better, you should do better. And so that is why we are here today. That is why we will continue to be here because it has been historically proven that if there is want to be something industrial or something in the spirit of economic development, well, let's go to the black community, and they'll be okay. We don't want it going towards Joe T. Robinson. We don't want it going towards Sherwood, Maumelle. Let's take it out there to Riceville, Higgins. Let's take it out there to Granite Mountain. So we should learn from our mistakes, and I'm one person who's a student of history. So therefore, I'm appreciative of this transparent moment, and let's continue to have more.
My other thought was, is it because that's where the county areas are? Just like where I represent, like Ferndale and Rowland, we don't have industrial, but we do have developments coming in really hot, like Robinson, all in Rowland, all in Ferndale. No, we have successfully fought those off. Actually, Terry's here. She's from Ferndale, Nevada. She is the queen of Ferndale. She is able to get her cavalry together, and they fight all of the development. So it can happen, and you just have to come together. That was my thought on that.
We don't know.
You know, a lot of people think of Sierra Club as just an environmental group. We have a motto. You can't have environmental justice without racial justice. You can't have environmental justice without social justice. You can't have environmental justice without economic justice.
That's right.
They're all connected.
Thank you. Regarding that question, my concern is, are they implying that someone sitting up here?
Just in general.
In general. Thank you. Because I know I thank you.
So I can say this, one of the things that troubles me about the areas in which these big developers choose to put harmful industrial facilities is that as a developer, one of the things that they look at is, in the black neighborhoods, your land is cheaper.
Right.
And unfortunately, they're going to buy in an area where the land is cheaper so that they can put more of their costs into their infrastructure. I spend less on my land, I get to build more than what I want to. And that's just the truth of it. It is environmental racism, but that is the honest truth. They're not going to go out west where they're going to spend hundreds and thousands of dollars, possibly millions on land, when I can get the same acreage for half the cost.
In a stressed area.
That's right. But the stand is, it's the stress, but I'm gonna make it better. And it's better for who? Not the community, but for the developer.
Yeah. Yes,
And so when you ask, when you wanna know the truth, that is the truth. It is because that land is cheaper, and they don't see the same value in the land as the people who live there. They look at it differently.
Environmental racism is racism. And we need to stop being phobic about that reality. Racism is a thing. Hello? It is a 24/7, 365 thing. And here is the reality. Take a deep breath, white folks. You are now seeing what racism does whenever racism shows up. Because quite truly, what we see is Google and Avaya, multi-billion-dollar companies with hardly any people of color in their controlling management, are putting these high-impact uses in poor black and brown areas. Just the same way that the petrochemical companies put their places in poor black and brown areas along the Mississippi River. Just the same way that 3M put their place along Granite Mountain, and the economic development folks in Little Rock were so proud of 3M, but they never joined a single product liability lawsuit by the black people who count cancer in 3M. Now let me say this and I'll stop. I'm sick and tired of people who don't look like me telling me I talk too much about racism, when racism looks us in the face all the time. Because truth of the matter is, CO2 and sulfuric oxide and nitrous oxide that comes from those diesel generators does not stop at the 71642 zip code or College Station or whatever, or Tree Home in Higgins. That air doesn't stop. Hello? The water that's messed up flows, and it flows into the aquifers. And guess what? That toxic water does not give white folks an immunity. Y'all don't get a pass. So don't get me started, but hear me real good. It's time for all of us to get involved in this. Because quite frankly, the profiteers are coming for all of us.
Thank you all very much. I have two quick announcements. One, we're going to go ahead and stick around until about 4:15 today because we've got so many questions. If you need to head out at 4, we totally understand, but if you can stick with us, please do. The other is that we have a representative here from the Arkansas Times, Philip Powell, who has some information that he believes will be important and would like to share with us, and as a team we've all agreed that we would like to hear what he has to say. So Philip Powell, if you could, and please feel free to come up and grab a mic.
You got the mic. I just want to thank our panelists. Like, wow. I mean, looking at this, seriously, and thank you all too. I mean, it's genuinely inspiring to see a community that has been so historically divided, and to see this type of democratic participation on these crucial issues that truly, as Judge Rupin just mentioned, is going to impact all of us. Every person in Pulaski County could be impacted by the data centers for generations. I did want to share a few things with you all, because again, as I've been so inspired to see so many people get organized around these issues, it's been something I've been writing about at the Arkansas Times for more than a year now. And I just wanted to try to focus this energy a little bit in ways that can be very productive. Yes, we need to be focused at the city and the county level on regulations on moratoriums, right? But also, at the end of the day, all of our electricity and our grid is regulated at the Arkansas Public Service Commission, right? Which is what Judge Wendell Griffin and many others up here have noted time and time again. And as we're waiting to see how exactly Entergy Arkansas, our utility here, everyone I'm assuming gets a bill from Entergy every month, right? Plans to power these data centers, they are going to have to bring those proposals in front of our state regulators. And you all should show up when they do that. Because it is a public process, just like our farm court, just like our city board. Oh, sorry. It is a public process, and you have to engage in that public process, okay? Here's a few things that I wanted to mention, right? People keep talking about the lack of transparency. And you're talking about that because it is completely 100% true, okay? Our city board gives the Chamber of Commerce, the Little Rock Regional Chamber of Commerce, a contract that they continuously renew so that the Chamber of Commerce can go out and secretively try to bring economic development to the city and to the county and avoid public disclosure law. I know a little bit about public disclosure laws. So do a lot of the attorneys up here. So do a lot of the county officials who have probably had to answer those 1 or 2 times in their careers, right? We have one of the strongest public disclosure laws in the entire country, and yet our city board is intentionally skirting it by giving this contract to our Chamber of Commerce. There is no reason why the city of Little Rock should not have an economic development department within city functions that has to be accountable to the public, that has to follow public meetings laws, and has to answer Freedom of Information Act requests, both from journalists, but also from all of you, the taxpayers and the citizens. And yet, because we are offloading this work to the chamber, they are able to get away with it. Well, I have a feeling they're probably going to get sued on that pretty soon. But litigation takes time, and that doesn't help with where we've ended up, because they have secretively, and now they've admitted this in numerous public meetings for the last 2 years, have been working to get these data centers set up and permitted here without telling a soul. We have just had to piece together the paper trail over time, doing what we can, because they have not done it. So you all need to be advocating. Excuse me.
RBO said that at the Quorum Board meeting.
Yes, ma'am. They said that.
They
Yes.
talked to the chamber, they said you guys approached us.
Yeah, and that doesn't surprise me at all, because, and there's no way for us to know. I can't email Jay Chester at the Chamber of Commerce, who I'm sure is a lovely guy with a lovely family, and say, I want to see your schedule, and I want to see the emails that you've been sending back and forth with Google. Brian Day, who is the executive director of the Board of Little Rock, is actually a public official. He literally emailed me this. I will show it to you. I'll send it to the folks in the He told me, Philip, I delete my emails every 90 days. I delete my emails every 90 days. It's industry practice. It's best practice for me, a public official, to delete my emails every 90 days so that I can limit essentially the amount of public disclosure I have to do with people who want to know how I am conducting my business. And I just want to raise just a few more points, and then I'll turn it back to the panelists. I am currently writing an opinion piece for the Times. I'm about to leave the Arkansas Times in a couple of weeks, but I'm writing an opinion piece that I'm calling the People's Data Center Agenda, right? Because as the judge mentioned, the profiteers have a data center agenda. It's to make a lot of profit off these data centers. But how can these data centers work for the people? That's what I'm writing, okay? And this piece, and again, we've had a lot of really good abstract thoughts coming from a lot of our panels today about climate change, about AI, and all sorts of things. But what this piece is going to be focused on, and I encourage you all to read it when I get it done, is going to be focused on what you all, as citizens of this county and as the city, can literally do over the next few days to get your city officials and your county officials to do what is right for the community, not just what is right for Google and ADAIO. Okay? And part of that is we need to be rethinking our relationship with the Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
I'm sorry, but that's because at the end of the day, if you are all concerned about the fact that they have been working on this for 2 years and have not told anyone, including many of our county legislators and city board officials, what they've been doing, if you're concerned about that, then I'm sorry, but our county officials and our city board officials need to rethink what that relationship looks like. They need to say, if you want our money, you need to be showing up every month and giving us an update on what companies you're recruiting. You need to be answering questions, not just answering questions whenever we finally threaten to pass regulations. Right? They only even announced that Google was behind the data center at the Port of Little Rock after Miss Julie Blackwood up here said, maybe we should do some regulations on ADAIO. It's crazy, y'all. It's literally crazy. And because I've been writing about this for a year, I'm looking at it and I'm seeing that this is just a coordinated public relations effort to try to spin you all off the real issues and off what they've been doing. Now, the second point that I wanted to make is that you're hearing a lot of talk from Entergy, okay? Entergy is continuously saying, quote after quote, 3 meetings now, 2 at the Quorum Court, at least 1 at the City Board, where they're going up and they're saying, we promise you all, data centers will pay their fair share. They are not only paying their fair share, but they are giving more back to the community. right? Mr. Wise just answered a question earlier about what do these fields look like. The answer is so far, we do not know because our public service commissioners are letting Entergy redact all the documents. The Public Service Commission has an online website, a portal, where you can look at all of the contracts, you can look at all the dockets as they're called, which are legal proceedings where different power plants are being approved, and the special rate contract between Google and between Entergy to power the West Memphis data center was approved. That contract is redacted. We cannot see how much of the gigantic solar field that Entergy is now building can power the West Memphis data center, how much of it we existing ratepayers are paying for versus how much Google is paying for. We just have to take their word for it that we're not paying for it. Guess what? We're at least paying for it a little bit. And it is completely unknowable how much we're actually benefiting from it as ratepayers and how they came up with this $1.1 billion net benefit calculation. Okay? So just continue being skeptical because, again, and I think this is what, and I'm going to put this in the op-ed, but we need to be asking the Public Service Commission to unredact those documents. Because why are they redacted? They can't even really explain that to us. But the point that I'm ultimately making as we think about how we move forward as a community here is if they did this in West Memphis, this is how they wanted to power a data center in West Memphis. Think about how they're going to want to power 2 data centers in Pulaski. They're going to try to redact the documents. They're going to want to build new power plants, and we already know they want to build new power plants because they released a whole campaign about it called Next Generation Arkansas. You can look it up. Guess what? All 700,000 of Entergy's ratepayers paid for those power plants. Google is not writing them a $1.6 billion check for a power plant. They want us to pick up some of that, even though our population is rather stagnant and we don't need 3, 4, 5 new power plants. So don't let them spin y'all, okay? Don't let them spin you. They want to spin you because at the end of the day, Entergy is a private company and they get a set rate of profit and a set rate of return on building new infrastructure. So if they can build a $1.5 billion power plant, they want a $1.5 billion power plant because they make additional profit, right? It's not always about efficiently serving and affordably serving the people who have been living here for generations. Sometimes it's about making money for the shareholders to them. Okay? So those are the 2 major points that I wanted to make. I really appreciate you all. And the last final thing I want to say is before I leave the Times, I promise I'm almost done, I promise. Before I leave the Times, I'm working on a huge article including most of that information. And if any of y'all and your data center activists would like to speak with me, you can find your email and I'll give it to Indivisible. I'd love to talk with you about your concerns about data centers. I'd love to talk with you about any of the panelists, including, and everyone else. So thank you all so much. I appreciate this time to speak with you.
Real quick, I've got a 1-minute comment. I was hoping that the PSC would come up. The reason that I'm advocating for the county and the city to require the electricity for these data centers to be renewable is that they will have to go to the PSC and ask the PSC to provide more renewable energy in their portfolio. Right now, Entergy doesn't have the capacity to power these data centers. They're going to have to build new power plants to power the data centers, and I want it to be renewable.
We've got one more question we want to try and get to from the audience, and then one more person who would like to come up and speak. We have several questions from people who are here with us today who are asking essentially, what can we do now? And Philip came up and totally stole my thunder about the question we were going to ask. But yes, what can we do now? So for our justices, our elected officials, what do we need to say at these meetings in June? It's this June. What do we need to say at these meetings on the 11th and the 25th? And for our subject matter experts, what recourse is available to us that you may know about that we wouldn't have the subject matter expertise to know?
I think showing up is key. We saw that in the last couple of meetings. There's a few JPs, I think that we're obviously all on board. There's a few that get very swayed by others and who come in thinking one way. If they hear a lawsuit, and they don't want to be sued because they think that because the state passed this, we can't do this, and they're just so afraid. I think showing up, there's power behind you guys, and I think just being kind and just maybe even emailing those who did not vote with us, ask them why, ask them if you can answer the questions, if you can find any information, and just chip away slowly is what I say.
Stay involved. It is your civic duty to stay involved, and we all have a part to play in this grand experience called America. So stay involved. June 25th is the meeting at 6 o'clock at the 201 Broadway in the Quorum Court building. So stay involved, stay engaged. If you are part of a neighborhood association, talk to the people at the neighborhood association, tell them to come out. Get involved. Public service does not start at the state capitol. Public service starts in your street, on your community, on your block, in your neighborhood. I'm sorry. Yes, the Quorum Court meeting is Tuesday as well. The public comment, the public open meeting is June 25th. The Quorum Court is this coming up Tuesday. Stay involved, stay engaged. Get your neighbors to become involved and engage as well. And then get the people on the other street behind you to become involved and engage. Y'all work together to get the street on the other side of them. So it's going to take everybody, but nevertheless, the power is in your hands.
What time on Tuesday?
June 25th, 6 o'clock, sir. 6 p.m. I believe that Kate will be sending that information out to everybody. The Quorum Court is 6 o'clock. It's 6 o'clock this Tuesday coming up. The June.
We have it every month.
Hey, folks, general reminder, we will be sending all of this information out later, so for the sake of time, let's focus on making sure we can get our questions answered. And if you want to find out when those meetings are going to be, we do have that email coming out, and so all of that information will be there. Make sure that you get your email address to us, and we'll make sure you know when and where to be.
Quorum Court meets every second Tuesday for its agenda meeting at 6 p.m. Every second Tuesday at 6 p.m. it has its agenda meeting at 6 p.m. at 201 Broadway. Second, this Tuesday, the moratorium ordinance that Justices Ward, my new best friend, and Justice Blackwood, and Justice Lepese Davis has sponsored will be on the agenda. Show up and urge Justice Lepese to vote for that 12-month planning agenda, that planning moratorium.
And the vote will be Tuesday. Speak on it, we'll vote.
Let's go to the
Yes, you should be able to speak, yes, before we vote. Yeah, you should be able to speak before we vote. And the main thing is call your JPs. Call them. Call all the JPs. Sometimes just the form letter doesn't work as well. Calling them, saying, vote for this, vote for this, vote for this. We need to pass the moratorium desperately on Tuesday. And that's the first thing we have to do. And if you can call them.
Remind that this is just advancing the moratorium to
the real
meeting.
The actual
Can you explain that?
Right. This is sending the moratorium to full quorum court. But it's got to be passed in order to get to full quorum court.
I have 8 votes Tuesday.
And we have got to have the votes. And so it is so important that you call each and every one of your quorum court members to urge them to vote for this. Okay, I just want to give you a brief announcement and I'll give it to you so you can send it out. Wrightsville City Hall is going to have a data center town hall meeting, and that's going to be June the 16th, Tuesday, June the 16th at 6:30, and that's at the Wrightsville City Hall.
On the 27th of June.
Okay, a few other things you need to know of actions. A, the people in power want you to forget this, and they want you to say, okay, no longer in your vision, they've moved on to something else. Keep at it. Second, to Justice Person's point, talking to people, yes, that is educating them not only on this topic, but on how this actually works, how to participate in the process, getting people together, talk about it in your book club, at your church group, at your pickup, from daycare, talk about it. Third is, it's a bipartisan issue, thank you. So don't feel like you have to stick with just the people that you feel like have shared values in the party that you talk to. We're here. But fourth on that is trouble some of the assumptions that are being made. There are a lot of talking points, there's a lot of PR that is happening. Trouble it. Yes, we might have low utility rates here in the state, but we're actually at the top of economic burden for utility rates because of where our wages are. That is the low utility rates talking point is what the energy is going to tell you, but this is the truth. There's a talk about AI. There's a talk that these data centers are inevitable. They don't have to be inevitable. AI has been built into things without our consent for years, and now we've been institutionalized into it being something that's part of our lives. So trouble that whether this is necessary or not. It's being used for so many different things. We've talked about some of them: surveillance, military, predictive pricing. You name it. So trouble those things, have those conversations, vote, do all the things.
You're off to a good start. Go to meetings, write letters to the editors, join like-minded organizations or form an organization, hire a lawyer who knows what he's doing and sue the hell out of the government.
Personally, I don't believe AI and quantum computing is going anywhere anytime soon. We have to do it smartly.
On the 27th of June, I will host an informational session at the Cal's Library, Fred Darrow Room. It is free. It is from 1:30 to 3:30. June 27th, Cal's Library, Fred Darrow Room, 5th floor, 1:30 to 3:30. On this subject, subject matter experts will be present. We'll talk about electricity load, we'll talk about water, we'll talk about how we regulate this. This is aimed at doing light, bringing light to the subject, not heat.
So I dream a lot. And one of the things that I'm working on through the public policy panel that Sierra Club is working on, we're going to draft legislation to present to the legislature that will prohibit a lot of what we're afraid of, a lot of what we're concerned about. We're going to put some of the same restrictions that I've talked about today into legislation, and that legislation will repeal that 2023 bill. There is some support at the legislature, even among Republicans, to repeal that. So to get something like that passed, we have to dream about changing the legislature. We have to change the legislature because when it comes to things like this, they are willfully ignorant, like I said. They go to the energy lobbyists, they go to the Google lobbyists to get how they should vote. We need to change the legislature. The last thing that I would say about what we can do right now, if you show up at the city board meetings, make the point, we plotted it, the Google data center and the Avio data center, as the crow flies, are 4.8 miles apart. They're very close together. So if you come to the board meeting, city board meeting, to talk about Avio, make that point. The city board cannot regulate in the county, but make the point that I'm opposed to both of them.
So I think that one thing that has been really heavily on my mind is that, yes, I do believe 100% we're going to get some regulation. But the flip side of that is, right now, we know that Google and Avio are coming. because they are coming, the question should be asked. We know what we don't really want, but what can we live with and how do we benefit from this company? What can we make them give back to us to enhance our quality of life? Because you are taking things away from it as well. What are you going to do to add to the problem that you are creating? That is what we need to ask about. We don't want you, you're going to be taking, but the people in District 9, what are you going to be giving back as well? That's an important question because I haven't heard a lot of that. What are they going to do for that community?
Real quick, we want this to move forward to our full-blown court for decision. So in order to make that happen, you have to show up. And not only show up, we have to work on the weakest link. I would strongly suggest reaching out to individuals in District, JPs in District 7, in District 8. I think they're kind of straddled the fence. Reach out to them, encourage them to vote for this moratorium. And other districts as well, but some of them you're just not going to get. But I would really work on 7, work on 8.
Can you name names?
Justice Curry and Justice Keith.
Yes.
Work on them. We need their votes.
If you live in this person, if you know people who live in those districts.
Diane Curry and Curtis Keith.
Yes. That's the landmark area, et cetera. Peripheral, I don't know what 7 is.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. You know, if it's you, you know.
Are these last? Okay. The only thing I want to say is, when you say data center to Sweet Home, and I live in Sweet Home, I love Sweet Home. I know you love where you live too, but I love Sweet Home. It has a lot of sentimental, like generational memories for me. So I love Sweet Home. I don't even look forward to leaving Sweet Home. So when you say data center, the people in Sweet Home is like, we can't even hardly get a good phone signal. So data center? Oh, we can have a data center, but we haven't had a good phone signal in years. And on top of phone signal, we like just Wi-Fi and all that good stuff that up in the city has access to. And then the trains that sit on the track. Y'all don't know nothing about that. I'm talking about they sit on the track. I'm talking about you're gonna have to turn around and go about 2 miles to go around to get on the interstate because the train 3M and Grand Mountain Forest say, hey, we coming through with our rocks. And you just gonna have to wait. And we may have to come through, then we're gonna bag the thing up, and you just sit there and wait until we get finished. So it's a lot of things that, happens in our area that you wouldn't even imagine. So please help us.
We're about to have one more person speak from the press, but before we do that, I want to acknowledge that we didn't get to speak to everyone's questions today. There were a lot. We did our best to cover the ones that were asked multiple times, but this is a first step. And the reason we did this today is because we have this meeting coming up on Tuesday. We wanted to make sure that we could get as much clarity and shed as much light as possible before then. But this is just the first conversation we're having. I also want to remind y'all, if you're wondering what you can do now, a lot of great advice was given today. There were a lot of wonderful steps that we should all take. But you can also organize locally. Right now, this has been pushed really quickly on all of us. We are all kind of scrambling, trying to catch up. But there are coalitions forming. And there are groups in the area that are taking steps and making moves to advocate for everybody and protect our communities and our environment. So if you're not already connected to a local group that's doing something, Come speak with us after. We will help you, whether you want to work with Indivisible or anywhere else. We work in coalition with folks all across the state. We will do our best to get you plugged in so that you can start making moves towards making your community better and towards protecting everybody, including yourselves, because we know that folks want to take action. To do that, we're gonna have to do that in community. There's no one thing that a person is gonna say today that is gonna be the solution. So we've got to get together and we've got to do the work, and it's not gonna happen as quickly as we want it to, but if we all stand with each other, it will happen. With that, I'm gonna open up the floor to Representative from the press who has an announcement. And then after that, y'all feel free to head out the door, but don't forget to make sure we have your email so we can make sure that everybody knows when, where, and what is happening related to data centers in the next coming weeks. We'll be sending out an email with that information. Thank you.
Okay, so guys, I work with KDF at 80.3. We have a radio show called Fuel Stop on Wednesday. It starts at 12 as soon as you hear the tornado siren. From 12 to 2, we talk about data centers, flock cameras, and local government politics. And so I encourage you to tune into that, but also to speak on what she said about her neighborhood and about the lack of Wi-Fi and phone service. My higher power compelled me to go out there to that area every week, and I went out there over the past few months to over 100 homes to try to find people and talk to people to make sure that they got what they needed to get to the Army Corps of Engineers. And then since then, I have done nothing, and I put everything in my professional and personal life to the side to work on this because I come from this area. This is what I care about. And 30 years ago, I worked against that same 3M company that she's complaining about. And my video helped win 16 families that I embedded myself with as an undercover investigative journalist with a degree from ULR. To find those 16 families did have a suit, not only for their health, which shut down the power plant during the day operations, but then they continued to keep doing operations at night, and so they had to sue again for the environmental impact because it brought in all of the dust and all the byproducts that were pumping out of the 3M into these people's homes. This is something that we aren't really able to grasp right now because we're becoming experts on this because it's moving so fast. But I can tell you right now, I've looked at hundreds and hundreds of hours of this stuff because I'm obsessed, and this is all I do. If you have a story and you want to share your story with me, that's why I bring my camera to all of these things. I can shoot your story here. I got my telephone number. I can shoot your story later. But this is just simply for a YouTube docuseries. You know, this is something that I hope that can be used as evidence and can work to help people, just like all the 10 or 12 videos I sent to the Army Corps of Engineers. But I've done this against SWEPCO power plants. I've done this to free the West Memphis 3. You guys' voices is what actually makes things happen. And so I encourage you to share with Philip because I completely trust and believe in Philip in the Arkansas Times. It's our only liberal magazine right now. These people that we're fighting against, these CEOs, they control the media. Some of my posts get 40,000 views, some get 4. It depends on creatively how I screenshot, word things, share things, and what the content is. I encourage you to get on your social media with your face and just share a story, share anything. This camera will actually shoot to the side. I can shoot your story right now and send it to your email to put on the internet, okay? Thank you so very much, and please show up to these meetings. And last thing is please give it up to Indivisible because I'm so grateful for them because